Captain Jake Morrison had seen some weird stuff in his 20 years with the Space Force, but tithed in. Nothing quite prepared him for walking into what looked like a cosmic courtroom filled with creatures that seemed designed by a committee of horror movie directors having a really bad day. The Galactic Deathworld Council chamber was basically the United Nations, if the United Nations was run by things that could kill you just by looking at you wrong. There were beings made of living crystal, others that appeared to be sentient gas clouds, and at least 3 species that Jake was pretty sure were just concentrated nightmares with diplomatic immunity. Ambassador Crix Tal, the crystalline being who'd been assigned as Earth's cultural liaison, which apparently meant the guy who gets to deliver the bad news, floated over to Jake with all the enthusiasm of someone about to explain why your insurance claim was denied. Ah, the human representative. Crix Tal's voice sounded like wind chimes having an argument. How delightfully primitive. We have completed our assessment of your so-called planet Earth. Jake straightened his uniform and tried to look diplomatic. Great. We're excited to join the galactic community. Earth has a lot to offer. The chamber erupted in what Jake could only describe as the sound of 1,000 alien species trying not to laugh and failing spectacularly. Crix Tal's crystalline form actually shimmered with what might have been amusement. Oh, my dear human, you misunderstand. We have classified Earth as a Class Z- Deathworld. That places you somewhere between cosmic joke and statistical error. The fact that your species survived to develop space travel is frankly baffling to our xenobiologists. Jake blinked. I'm sorry, what now? Your planet. Crix Tal continued with the patience of someone explaining basic math to a particularly slow child, has weather that changes randomly, but tectonic plates that move around like they're having seizures, and you share your ecosystem with creatures that consider you lunch. It's adorable, really. A massive being that looked like a cross between a dragon and a very angry filing cabinet leaned forward. I am Gornax the Terrible, survivor of the plasma storms of Kepler 442 billion, and even I think your planet sounds unpleasant. We've decided to offer you a position in our organization, Crix Tal announced magnanimously. You can be our janitors. It's really quite generous, considering your obvious limitations. Jake felt that familiar sensation he'd experienced during his divorce proceedings, the feeling that everyone in the room knew something he didn't and was enjoying his confusion just a little too much. Janitors? He repeated. Waste management specialists, Crix Tal corrected. We're told humans prefer euphemisms. Your species' ability to survive in obviously unsuitable conditions makes you perfect for cleaning up after real Deathworld species. The chamber filled with that weird alien laughter again. Jake was starting to take it personally. Now, Crix Tal continued, if you'll just sign these forms acknowledging Earth's subservient status, we can begin your orientation. Don't worry, we'll provide you with appropriate safety equipment. Most of it should keep you alive for at least several hours in civilized environments. Jake looked at the contract, which was written in what appeared to be 17 different alien languages, none of which resembled anything remotely human. The only thing he could make out was what looked like a cartoon drawing of a human holding a mop next to a skull and crossbones. You know what? Jake said, surprising himself with his own voice. I think we'll pass on the janitor thing. The silence that followed was the kind of quiet you get right before someone asks to speak to your manager. Crix Tal's crystalline form went through several colors that Jake was pretty sure weren't good signs in any species. Pass? I'm sorry, did our translator malfunction? Did you just refuse our generous offer? That's exactly what I did, Jake replied, wondering why his mouth kept making decisions without consulting his brain first. The chamber erupted in chaos. Beings were chittering, roaring, and making sounds that Jake's ears refused to process. One creature that looked like an octopus wearing power armor actually fell off its floating platform. This is unprecedented. Gornax the Terrible bellowed. No species has ever refused council guidance. Well, Jake shrugged, there's a first time for everything. Crix Tal managed to pull himself together, literally, as several of his crystal fragments had started floating around independently. Very well. If you insist on proving your worth, we offer you the Deathworld trials. The what now? A series of challenges designed to test a species' ability to survive in truly hostile environments. Of course, no Class Z species has ever attempted them. Most civilized beings require months of preparation and specialized equipment just to survive the preliminary rounds. Jake nodded enthusiastically. Sounds great. We'll do it. All of them, Jake added, because apparently his mouth had decided to go into business for itself. The chamber fell silent again. This time Jake was pretty sure he could hear someone's alien equivalent of a jaw dropping. All of them? Crixtal stammered. Sure, why not? How hard can it be? A being that looked like a shark crossed with a tornado leaned forward. I am Vortek the Destroyer, conqueror of 17 star systems and survivor of the lava lakes of Proxima Centauri. I consider a nice lava bath refreshing, and even I wouldn't attempt all the trials. And I, announced a voice like honey mixed with hydrogen fluoride, am Queen Zephyra of the methane worlds. I breathe poison gas for fun and consider absolute zero a comfortable sleeping temperature. The trials nearly killed me, and I only attempted 3 categories. Jake was starting to get the feeling he might have overcommitted himself, but doubling down had gotten him through his military career so far. Don't worry, he said with confidence he absolutely didn't feel. I've got backup. That's when Dr. Emma Rodriguez burst through the chamber doors like she was conducting a hostile takeover of a PTA meeting. She was followed by Sergeant Rex Tank Thompson, who looked around the alien assembly with the expression of a man who'd seen weirder things during basic training. Sorry I'm late, Emma announced, completely ignoring the fact that she was addressing beings that could probably end human civilization with a strongly worded letter. Traffic was murder. Also, Jake, when you said bring the team, you might have mentioned we were meeting with cosmic horror characters. Tank surveyed the room and nodded approvingly. Decent turnout. I've seen scarier things at military cookouts. Crixtal's form was now cycling through colors that Jake was pretty sure meant existential crisis in crystal being language. These are your specialists, he managed. Emma's our xenobiologist, Jake explained. Tanks are, well, Tank's Tank. I specialize in making things not be problems anymore, Tank clarified helpfully. Emma was already pulling out her scanner and taking readings of the assembled aliens. Of fascinating biosignatures. This one's basically a sentient mineral deposit. That one's held together by what appears to be pure spite. And I'm pretty sure that guy in the corner is just 3 smaller aliens in a trench coat. I am. That's Ambassador Tretox of the Hive Mind Collective, Crixtal protested weakly. Yeah, that tracks, Emma replied, making notes. Queen Zephyra's methane-breathing apparatus made a sound like a deflating balloon. This is your team? A scientist with boundary issues and a warrior who thinks we look familiar? Hey now, Tank interrupted. I've got a lot of respect for you folks. It takes real dedication to look that intimidating. I'm guessing you spend hours on the whole terrifying cosmic entity look. Vortek the Destroyer actually preened a little. Well, I do put considerable effort into my apocalyptic aesthetic. It shows, buddy. Really quality work. Jake watched this exchange with the growing realization that his team was somehow managing to treat galactic supervillains like slightly eccentric coworkers. He wasn't sure if this was brilliant diplomacy or a complete disaster waiting to happen. So he said, clapping his hands together, when do these trials start? The first trial took place on Inferno Prime, a planet that made Venus look like a pleasant beach resort. The surface temperature hovered around 800 degrees Celsius. The atmosphere was mostly sulfur compounds, and the landscape looked like someone had asked a volcano to design a golf course. Jake stood on the observation platform with the other council members, watching as the various species were teleported down to the surface. Through the viewing screens, he could see Vortek the Destroyer immediately dive into a lava flow like it was a swimming pool, while Queen Zephyra began setting up what appeared to be a complex atmospheric processing unit. Your humans should be dead within minutes, Crixtal observed clinically. No species has ever survived Inferno Prime without specialized equipment for more than. He was interrupted by Tank's voice coming through the comm system. Hey Jake, you got a volleyball net up there? We found a nice flat spot and the ground's perfect for a tournament. The screen showed Tank and Emma, wearing nothing but standard-issue environmental suits, calmly setting up what appeared to be a beach volleyball court on the edge of an active volcano. The sulfur smell reminds me of that camping trip in Yellowstone, Emma was saying as she measured out the court boundaries. Remember when you accidentally pitched your tent on that thermal vent? Good times, Tank agreed, spiking a ball over their improvised net. This is way better, though. No mosquitoes. Ornax the Terrible, who was currently hiding inside a specialized cooling unit the size of a small building, stared at the screen in disbelief. Are they playing games? The environmental readings show surface temperatures that should liquefy most organic compounds, another council member wheezed. How are they not only alive, but having fun? Jake shrugged. Tank spent 3 years stationed in Arizona. This is probably cooler than his barracks were. The second trial was supposed to be even worse. The Maze of Eternal Screaming was a psychological torture dimension designed to drive participants insane by forcing them to confront their deepest fears and anxieties. Most species required extensive mental conditioning just to enter it without suffering permanent psychological damage. The council watched as Emma and Tank were transported into the maze, a shifting nightmare landscape of dark corridors and walls that whispered horrible truths about the universe. The maze will attack their minds directly, Crixtal explained with obvious satisfaction. It will show them visions of their greatest failures, their deepest shames, their most paralyzing fears. Most beings are reduced to gibbering wrecks within hours. Through the psychic monitoring system, they could hear Emma and Tank's conversation echoing through the maze. Oh great, Emma's voice came through clearly. Another corridor full of cosmic horror imagery. You know what this reminds me of? My ex-wife's family reunions? Tank suggested. Close. My dissertation defense. Same energy, less helpful feedback. At least the screaming here is more honest, Tank replied. Remember when you had to present your research to that board of tenured professors who hadn't updated their knowledge since the Carter administration? Don't remind me. That was actually scarier than this place. The maze, apparently frustrated by their casual dismissal of its terrors, began throwing more intense visions at them. Through the monitors, the council could see nightmarish images of apocalyptic scenarios, personal failures, and existential dread made manifest. Oh, come on, Emma's voice carried a note of professional irritation. Social anxiety and imposter syndrome? That's your big psychological attack? I'm a scientist. That's just Tuesday. Yeah, Tank agreed. You gotta try harder than that. I once had a drill instructor who could make grown men question their entire life choices just by looking at them funny. This is amateur hour. They began making jokes to pass the time, and somehow their completely irreverent attitude toward cosmic horror was causing the maze to malfunction. The walls started flickering, the screaming became uncertain, and the whole nightmare dimension seemed to be having an identity crisis. Why did the existential void cross the road? Emma asked, her voice echoing through the confused maze. I don't know. Why? Tank replied. To get to the other side of meaninglessness. The maze of eternal screaming actually groaned in what sounded suspiciously like frustration before depositing them at the exit. Crixtal's crystalline form had gone completely transparent, which Jake was learning meant either deep thought or total system failure. They solved a psychological torture dimension with dad jokes, he whispered. Is that bad? Jake asked. The nervous chittering from the assembled council members suggested that yes, it was very bad indeed. The third trial was supposed to be the final nail in humanity's cosmic coffin. The combat arena featured the council's championship war beasts, but creatures so dangerous that most species required entire military units just to survive an encounter with one of them. Jake watched as Tank was teleported into the arena to face off against something called a Void Ripper, which looked like someone had taught a saber-toothed tiger how to phase through dimensions and then given it anger management issues. The Void Ripper has never been defeated in single combat, Vorthak announced proudly. It exists partially outside normal spacetime, making it nearly impossible to hit, and its claws can cut through reinforced titanium like paper. Tank stood in the center of the arena, looking at the Void Ripper with the expression of someone who'd just discovered a stray cat in his garage. "Here, kitty kitty," he called out, making those little clicking sounds people use to get cats' attention. The Void Ripper, unused to this particular tactical approach, paused mid-phase and tilted its head in confusion. "Yeah, you're just a big scary kitty, aren't you?" Tank continued, slowly approaching with his hands out. "I bet nobody ever tells you you're a good boy." The creature that had terrorized 3 star systems began making a sound that was suspiciously similar to purring. "There we go," Tank said, reaching out to scratch behind what might have been ears. "Who's a good interdimensional death machine?" "You are." "Yes, you are." The Void Ripper rolled over and presented its belly for scratches. "What?" Queen Zephyra gasped. "In the name of all the frozen hells is happening?" Emma's voice came through the comm system from where she was running scans on the arena's other war beasts. "Oh, that's interesting. Jake, I'm seeing some really weird readings here." "Define weird," Jake replied, though he was starting to suspect he knew what was coming. "Well, these ultimate predators are showing stress markers consistent with animals that are way outside their natural comfort zones. It's like they're all suffering from severe environmental anxiety." "Environmental anxiety?" Crixtal repeated weakly. "Yeah, they're basically homesick. These creatures evolved in what they consider extreme environments, but by Earth standards their home worlds are." Emma paused, and Jake could practically hear her recalculating everything she thought she knew about galactic ecology. "By Earth standards their home worlds are what, Emma?" Jake prompted. "Golf courses," she said finally. "By Earth standards, every single one of these death worlds is basically a well-maintained golf course." The silence that followed was the kind of quiet you get right before someone realizes they've been doing their taxes wrong for the past 20 years. "That's impossible," Gornax the Terrible protested. "My home world has lava storms that can melt starships." "Yeah, and we call that a Tuesday in Hawaii," Emma replied. "Your deadly lava storms are what we use to generate geothermal energy. We built vacation resorts next to them. But the radiation levels on Kepler 442 billion are lethal to most organic life," another council member protested. "We measured those. That's about the same background radiation you get from a banana," Tank called out, still playing with his new interdimensional pet. "We eat those for breakfast." Jake felt the universe shift around him as the pieces clicked into place. "You're telling me that Earth isn't just a death world?" "Earth is the death world. Every other species' version of extreme is our version of mildly pleasant weather." "Pretty much," Emma confirmed. "I'm reading atmospheric compositions here that we'd consider perfect for terraforming projects. These hostile environments would actually be improvements over some places humans live voluntarily." The council chamber filled with the sound of several dozen apex predator species having simultaneous existential crises. Jake looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most dangerous species, all of whom were now staring at him with expressions ranging from fear to what might have been respect, and realized that the balance of power had just shifted in a very big way. "So," he said, settling into his chair with the confidence of someone who'd just discovered he'd been playing poker with a group of people who thought a pair of twos was an unbeatable hand, "but I think we need to renegotiate." Crixtal's crystalline form was now cycling through colors that Jake was pretty sure meant total psychological breakdown in whatever species he was. "Renegotiate? But you're Class Z-. You're supposed to be our janitors." "About that," Jake replied, pulling out his tablet and opening up a presentation he'd definitely not prepared in advance but was somehow managing to wing successfully. "I've been thinking about your little Death World operation here, and I've got to say, you folks are doing it all wrong." "All wrong?" Queen Zephyra's voice had gone up about 3 octaves. "Oh yeah, see, you've been treating this like some kind of macho competition, when what you really need is proper management structure. You need organization, scheduling, risk assessment protocols, customer service standards. Jake was making this up as he went along, but the council members were hanging on every word like he was revealing the secrets of the universe. You need humans, he continued. We've got thousands of years of experience managing hostile environments, dangerous wildlife, and workplace safety violations that would make your void rippers look like therapy animals. Tank's voice came through the comm system. Plus, we're really good at paperwork. You wouldn't believe how much paperwork it takes to properly document a Deathworld incident. Emma, what's our current assessment of their operational efficiency? Jake called out. Terrible, came the immediate reply. No standardized procedures, no safety protocols, and their idea of environmental management is basically throw the toughest guy at it and see what happens. It's like watching a group of toddlers try to run a nuclear power plant. Orthak the Destroyer, who was still dripping lava from his recreational swim, raised what might have been a hand. Are you suggesting that you could do better? I'm not suggesting anything, Jake replied with a grin. I'm making you an offer. Earth Deathworld Management Solutions. We'll handle all your dangerous environment needs with professional, experienced staff who consider your worst nightmares to be a light workout. The chamber erupted in excited chittering. Aliens were pulling out communication devices, apparently already trying to contact their home governments. But what would you want in return? Gornax asked suspiciously. Standard rates. 40% of all resource extraction profits, full diplomatic immunity for our staff, and management fees calculated on a sliding scale based on how many of your people we keep alive during operations. That seems reasonable, Crixtal said immediately, then caught himself. I mean, it seems completely outrageous and we should probably consider. Actually, Queen Zephyra interrupted. My government would be very interested in this arrangement. We've been losing an unacceptable number of citizens to what you apparently consider minor environmental hazards. Same here, admitted another council member. Our mining operations on Scorpion 7 have a 90% casualty rate, and that's apparently just a normal summer day for you people. Jake sat back and watched as the galaxy's most feared species began bidding against each other for the privilege of hiring humanity to do their dangerous jobs. It was like watching a group of sharks realize they'd been afraid of goldfish all along. There is one condition, he said finally, and the chamber fell silent. We're going to need better accommodations than that janitor offer. I'm thinking more along the lines of council leadership positions. The silence stretched out for a long moment before Crixtal's form finally stabilized into what Jake hoped was resignation rather than homicidal rage. When can you start? He asked. 3 months later, Jake sat in his new office aboard the Galactic Council's primary station, looking out at a view of 17 different star systems and wondering how exactly his life had taken this particular turn. His door chimed and Tank stuck his head in. Boss, the Methane Miners Union is here for their monthly safety briefing, and they brought gift baskets again. Gift baskets? Jake raised an eyebrow. Yeah, apparently the mortality rate on their operations dropped by 98% since we took over management. They're pretty excited about it. Jake nodded. That tracked. Emma had instituted basic safety protocols like check for unstable ground before walking on it, and maybe don't eat the glowing rocks, which had apparently been revolutionary concepts for most galactic civilizations. Also, Tank continued, Vorthak wants to know if he can get overtime pay for the weekend shift on the Nightmare Dimension maintenance project. Tell him standard time and a half applies, but he needs to fill out the proper forms in triplicate. Got it. Oh, and that crystal guy wants to see you. He seems upset about something. Crixtal floated into the office with all the enthusiasm of someone attending their own audit. His crystalline form had settled into a sort of resigned blue color that Jake had learned meant acceptance of cosmic injustice. Director Morrison, he began formally. Because Jake was apparently Director Morrison now, I need to discuss the quarterly efficiency reports. What's the problem? Jake asked, though he suspected he knew. There is no problem. That is the problem. Productivity is up 400% across all Deathworld operations. The casualty rates are down to levels we previously thought impossible. Client satisfaction ratings are at an all-time high. My entire worldview has been fundamentally altered. Jake tried to look sympathetic. That must be difficult for you. You have no idea. My species spent 3,000 years believing we were apex survivors in a hostile universe. It turns out we're basically cosmic houseplants who need someone to water us regularly and make sure we get enough sunlight. Look on the bright side, Jake offered. You're still alive, you're making more money than ever, and your people don't have to worry about getting eaten by their own environment anymore. Yes, but the existential implications are staggering. If humans consider our most extreme environments to be recreational activities, what does that say about the nature of survival itself? Are we even really living, or are we just existing in a carefully managed terrarium? Jake considered this for a moment. Crixtal, can I ask you something? Of course, Director. Are you happy? The question seemed to catch the crystalline being off guard. His form flickered through several colors before settling on what Jake had learned was the equivalent of deep thought. Yes, he said finally, sounding surprised. Yes, I am happy. More happy than I have ever been. My people are safe, prosperous, and no longer live in constant fear of their environment. I simply do not understand how this happened. Jake leaned back in his chair and grinned. That's the thing about humans, Crixtal. We're really good at making things work, even when we have no idea what we're doing. But surely you must understand the implications of your species' abilities? The way you've revolutionized galactic civilization? Jake shrugged. Not really. We just treated your problems like problems that needed solving instead of like cosmic tests of worthiness. Turns out most of the universe's issues can be fixed with basic safety protocols and proper paperwork. Crixtal's form went through what Jake was pretty sure was the alien equivalent of a laugh. Director Morrison, your species conquered the galaxy's most dangerous environments through the power of bureaucracy and common sense. Yeah, Jake replied, looking out at the stars where human-managed operations were probably solving problems that had stumped alien civilizations for millennia. Sounds about right. As Crixtal floated out of the office, muttering about the philosophical implications of aggressive competence, Jake reflected on the strange turns life could take. 3 months ago, he'd been a middle-tier diplomat expecting to negotiate trade agreements. Now he was apparently running half the galaxy's dangerous operations, and nobody seemed more surprised by this development than he was. His comm system chimed with an incoming message from Emma, who was currently supervising a terraforming project that the locals had been trying to complete for 2 centuries. Jake, you're not going to believe this, but they want us to take over managing their weather systems. Apparently what they call catastrophic climate instability is just normal weather patterns, and they've been treating meteorology like some kind of mystical art instead of, actual science. Jake sighed and reached for his calendar, set up a meeting for next week. And Emma? Yeah? Nah. Try not to accidentally solve any more impossible problems before then. I'm running out of office space for all our new clients. No promises, came the cheerful reply. Jake looked out at the stars and wondered what his old commanding officer would say if he could see him now. Probably something about how typical it was for humans to stumble backwards into galactic domination through sheer stubborn practicality. He was pretty sure this wasn't how most first contact scenarios were supposed to go, but then again, humans had never been particularly good at following the script anyway.